In the heart of bustling New York City, where the horns of taxis merge with hurried footsteps, there stood a high-end cafe called Lo Mandarin. It was the kind of place where executives sipped lattes while scrolling through their emails, and celebrities stopped by for a moment of quiet. That morning, a man stepped into the cafe. His coat was worn, his boots old but clean. His eyes carried the weight of decades. George Collins was his name. A retired black U.S. veteran, George had served in the Gulf War. He had medals buried in a drawer somewhere, stories few ever asked to hear, and a heart that still beat with pride for a country that seemed to forget him. George wasn't homeless. He had money, just not much. He had entered the cafe for something simple, a hot cup of coffee to warm his hands and his soul. As he waited patiently in line, the cafe manager, Brian Holmes, spotted him. Brian, a young man in a tailored suit and a colder-than-ice attitude, looked George up and down with visible disdain. He approached George, his voice sharp and arrogant. "Sir, this isn't a soup kitchen. Our guests expect a certain standard." George, taken aback but calm, replied, "I'm not asking for charity, son. I have money. Just want a coffee." Brian scoffed and waved toward the exit. "You need to leave. Now. We don't want to make the other customers uncomfortable." Before George could say another word, security was summoned. In full view of everyone, he was escorted out like a criminal. What Brian didn't know was that someone was watching. Morgan Freeman. Yes, the legendary actor, known for his wisdom-filled voice and iconic roles, was sitting quietly in the corner, hidden behind sunglasses and a low-brimmed hat. He had witnessed everything. He stood up, slowly, and followed George out of the cafe. Outside, he caught up to him. "Sir," Morgan said gently. "May I walk with you a moment?" George, still shaken, looked at him and blinked in disbelief. "Wait, are you?" "Yes," Morgan smiled. "And I saw what just happened." 10 minutes later, Morgan was on the phone. Not just any phone call, he dialed a personal friend, the CEO of the corporation that owned the cafe chain. "You need to know what's happening in your business," Morgan said. "Because what I saw this morning? It's going viral. And trust me, the world will care." And GT, veteran thrown out of cafe, Morgan Freeman caught it all on camera. Clips flooded TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. The hashtag respect our veterans trended worldwide. Millions were outraged. News stations ran the footage. Celebrities voiced their support. Even the White House made a statement about honoring veterans. Brian Holmes was fired immediately. But the story didn't end there. That evening, George received a personal call. It was Morgan. "Would you join me for dinner?" he asked. At a warm restaurant uptown, Morgan sat across from George and said, "You shouldn't be treated like that. Not after everything you've done for this country. I have a foundation for veterans. We're offering you a position, dignified, well-paid, and respected. Also, there's a place we're fixing up. It's yours, if you'd like." George, tears welling up in his eyes, could barely speak. That night, he walked out not just with a job and a home, but with dignity restored. Weeks later, George stood on stage at a national veterans event. Beside him stood Morgan Freeman. The crowd gave a standing ovation as George spoke into the mic. "I was thrown out of a cafe, but now I've been welcomed into a family. Not because someone saw what happened, but because someone cared enough to act." And somewhere, far away, Brian watched it all on TV, realizing that in a single moment of pride and prejudice, he had lost everything. While the man he tried to humiliate had become a symbol of honor.